Hello, in this screencast I want to show how you can work with different REPL sessions using Cider. Okay, let's get going. So here in this closure buffer I have project A. I also have a project file for project B. I'm going to open up a Cider REPL session for each one. So Cider jack in. There we go. I'm just going to clearly mark this. So this is the REPL belonging to project A. I'm going to go back here, and now I'm going to go to the project file for project B. These are two different projects. I'm going to jack into this one as well. Excellent. And this one is B. I've got two different REPL sessions open, so we can prove that. If you look at the mini buffer here, there's a Cider REPL for project A and there's a Cider REPL for project B. And I can flick between them pretty easily using IDO here. So if you look at the mini buffer also, then you can see I have an nREPL connection open for each one as well, and the suffix clearly states which project that nREPL connection is for, and likewise for the nREPL server instance. Let's go to a closure file for project A. Now I'm going to try and compile this, and it's failed. So in Cider you have a default REPL connection, and in this case the last REPL connection that I opened up was for project B. Project B has different dependencies to project A. In this case project A has core typed, and when we try and compile this namespace that depends on core typed into the REPL connection for project B, we get this failure. So what can we do? Well, the first thing that we can do is determine what is the current Cider REPL connection. And we can do that with the command cider display current connection info. And it clearly tells us, hey, the default REPL connection that is currently open is for project B. And this command is bound to a hotkey Control-C meta D. What we can also do from here is to rotate across the REPL connections that we have open. So there's a command, cider rotate connection, that will, in this case, rotate me across to the REPL connection for project A. And if I want to, I can then rotate back to the REPL connection for project B. This is also bound to a hotkey Control-C meta R. So now I'm on the REPL connection for project A, I can now try and compile this namespace again, and it will succeed. So what I would like to show next is the ability to switch between the current closure buffer that's open and the REPL buffer. And I can do that using Control-C, Control-Z. So this is pretty handy. And then if I'm in the REPL buffer, I can do Control-C, Control-Z to get back to the closure buffer. Now, this command also comes with a prefix. So if I do a prefix Control-U, Control-C, Control-Z, it will take me to the REPL buffer, but it will also put me in the namespace of the current closure buffer. In this case, it's core. Now, one thing that's worth noting about this behavior is that let's say I go to a project file for project B. So now we're in the core file for project B, and I do the same thing, Control-C, Control-Z. The default behavior of Cider is to try and match the REPL buffer against the current closure buffer that you're on. So here it can detect that I'm in a project file for project B and there's a REPL open for project B, so just send me to the REPL buffer for project B. If I want to explicitly choose the REPL buffer that Control-C, Control-Z switches to, then I can supply a double prefix to the command on the closure buffer. And then as you can see at the bottom, it's using IDO to help me select the project directory that matches the REPL buffer that I want to switch to. So in this case, I'm going to choose the project A directory, and it will take me to the REPL buffer that matches project A. It's worth noting that if there's any ambiguity about which REPL buffer connects to which project buffer, then Cider won't try and do an intelligent match. So for example, if I were to open up a new REPL buffer against project B, even though there's one already, and now from a closure buffer in project B, I try to switch using Control-C, Control-Z, the message at the bottom will report that it could not determine a relevant nREPL connection, and it's using the default REPL connection. If you want to, you can turn off this smart matching of REPL buffer to closure buffer by changing the cider switch to REPL command to cider switch to current REPL buffer. This is outlined in the docs. And there we go. Thank you very much for watching.